Every week when a new episode of Star Trek Starfleet Academy comes out, I tell you that the show couldn't get any worse, but after watching episode 8, I think I'm gonna choose my words more carefully moving forward, because even though this episode is, without a doubt, the worst that has aired until now from this series, I suspect that the remaining 2 episodes of the season will be an even bigger disaster, if that were even possible. Now, on a more personal note, I want to share with you that watching episode 8 of Starfleet Academy genuinely surprised me, not because I thought it would be good or anything, because I knew it wouldn't be, and not because it once again highlighted that the Star Trek franchise was in shambles, because that's been obvious for years now. No, what caught me off guard was just how difficult it was to review this episode because of how awful it was. Still, I started this journey with you all, and I guess it's too late to stop doing these reviews now, so in spite of my sentiments, I did end up doing this review, and if you want to support me during this difficult time, please take a second now to like and subscribe, as it would really help an independent reviewer like myself.
Do it.
Episode 8 starts off with the Doctor giving something like a captain's log where he uses quotes from Our Town, a play you're going to unfortunately be hearing about throughout this annoying episode, so you better get used to it. The Doctor also explains how he never sleeps or something because he's a hologram. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, while I think that Voyager is obviously light years better than anything modern Trek, and I think that Robert Picardo's performance as the Doctor is a highlight on Voyager, I've never really been a big fan of the idea of a hologram on Star Trek to begin with, but whatever issues I ever had with that entire concept, on Starfleet Academy, they're 100 times worse, as the writers here are just too dumb to even approach such an idea, but we'll get back to that later. Betazoid Girl, who we last saw turn into Dark Phoenix, destroy hijackers, and then slip into a coma in episode 6, is now back at the Academy after she completely healed off screen in episode 7. The only difference now is that in order to make things less stressful for her, she's no longer a cadet of the War College, and she's been transferred to Starfleet Academy instead. This is of course dumb on multiple levels. For starters, the people that write this show were never able to explain the difference between the War College and Starfleet Academy, let alone why they were both simultaneously studying on an active traveling starship to begin with. Even worse, the idea that the War College puts the cadets in more risky situations than Starfleet Academy doesn't work either, as the cadets of both colleges took part in the training that led to Betazoid Girl being in a coma. Whether she was at War College or Starfleet Academy, she would have been in the exact same position she is now, so why even bother transferring her? Yeah, don't think about it. People are staring at Betazoid Girl like she's a freak, as opposed to Hologram Girl, who people always love for some reason. Holly Hunter and the Doctor personally greet Betazoid Girl and tell her that even though she's the best for saving people in episode 6, she needs to take it easy and become a science officer because using her superpowers could put her health at risk. We also understand that she now has a brand new and very different inhibitor installed on her neck that will help her control her emotions because she's just too darn powerful. But isn't that exactly how she described her previous inhibitor in episode 2, which she ended up bypassing? Yeah, don't think about that either. Also, don't think about how her uniform is different than anybody else's, although I suspect this was probably done to highlight her stupid inhibitor, which the other cadets don't have, but trust me, that's really the least of this episode's concerns. Holly Hunter sees random douche being confrontational with some guy, leading her to believe that there's a lot of tension at the Academy. Next, all the cadets are on the bridge in some kind of drill, but Tig Notaro tells them that they failed because they're not working together as a team. The only problem is, why would they work as a team if she's sitting in the captain's chair and not giving them any orders? I mean, if she was just going to sit around here and do nothing, she may as well have at least appointed one of the cadets as drill captain, because without somebody leading them in a crisis situation, how are they all supposed to simulate a real-life crisis? Yeah, don't think about it. Again. Holly Hunter explains to the Doctor that the students still haven't recovered from the trauma of the Miyazaki hijacking from episode 6, which is odd because they all seemed perfectly fine in episode 7, which supposedly occurred 1 month after that incident, and this episode supposedly takes place about 2 months after. So why would they only have issues now? Yeah, definitely don't think about that, as this is exactly the problem I keep highlighting, where not only do the writers of this terrible show not know anything about Star Trek, they can't even seem to remember their own stupid narrative that they themselves created from episode to episode. Anyhow, in order to rid themselves of their trauma, Holly Hunter tells the Doctor that she's bringing in the cavalry to help save the day. Next, Hologram Girl TikTok Girl, Caleb, Random Douche, Sensitive Klingon all show up to a last-minute class that was added to their schedule, and Hologram Girl confesses to TikTok Girl that she accidentally dropped her toothbrush in the toilet while she was in the bathroom. But if she's a hologram, why would she need to go to the bathroom? Yeah, don't think about it. Betazoid Girl arrives and Caleb gets excited like a little girl again, but Betazoid Girl doesn't seem to give him the time of day. We then learn that the person teaching this class is Blimpie, who you may recognize from Star Trek Discovery, and she is of course the reinforcements that Holly Hunter was telling the Doctor about. Now, don't worry if you don't remember this character, as most people didn't watch that embarrassing Discovery show, and rightfully so. I'm sure Star Trek producer Alex Kurtzman thought that bringing Blimpie here would be a huge win for his own version of the Star Trek universe, but it's not really the flex that he thought it was, because in reality, this is the MCU equivalent of bringing Ironheart to make a guest appearance on Agatha All Along. Anyway, Blimpie tells the cadets that she's here to teach them theater, which has always been a great tool to promote political and social change, which interestingly is exactly what Star Trek producer Alex Kurtzman said that he uses Star Trek for, and exactly the reason why this entire franchise has fallen off a cliff over the past decade during his tenure. After Blimpie tells the cadets that they need to choose one play that they'll all perform together, the cadets seem kind of depressed, aside from Hologram Girl, who's super excited. This causes Blimpie to tell Hologram Girl that she's her favorite, which is odd because she's basically complimenting some AI software and not a real person, but whatever. Betazoid Girl is apparently now roommates with Hologram Girl and TikTok Girl, so Hologram Girl tells her she's halfway through reading all the plays written in the 20th century because she's of course not human and processes things very quickly. Please remember that for later when the writers of the episode completely forget about it. Hologram Girl tells Betazoid Girl that sometimes her underwear gets stuck in her butt, which is odd because she's not a real person. Again, Betazoid Girl thanks Hologram Girl for not looking at her like she's a freak because that's how she claims everybody sees her now. But why would people think that Betazoid Girl is a freak after saving all of her friends from certain death in episode 6? Yeah, you should absolutely not think about that. Then Hologram Girl accidentally annoys Betazoid Girl, who then feels guilty about getting annoyed at Hologram Girl, so she apologizes. But then it turns out that Hologram Girl is secretly still glitching. Again. Then we have something of a Star Trek Discovery reunion, anticipated by nobody, with Tig Notaro and Blimpie together again doing Ladies' Night with Holly Hunter, where they have a round of drinks together. Holly Hunter says that the Miyazaki incident from episode 6 has caused the cadets real trauma, which is why she needs Blimpie to counsel them through it. This is very odd for a number of reasons. For starters, why are women from 700 years ago that ended up in the present due to time travel so popular with Starfleet that they would give them important roles? After all, the time difference from when they originated is so great that the likelihood of one of them even fitting in here is extremely low, let alone two of them. It's about the equivalent of King Richard II arriving in my present from the 1300s and then immediately doing a live stream with me, which sounds kind of interesting in theory, but not only would King Richard probably be very confused about the whole situation, his version of English would likely be one that was very different than mine. Tig Notaro then offers some words of wisdom by saying that it's not the size of the load that matters, but rather how you absorb it, which is easy for her to say because I'm quite certain that she's never absorbed a load, if you know what I mean. Although I can't say the same thing about Alex Kurtzman, who may or may not be into that sort of thing. Allegedly. Holly Hunter is worried about Betazoid Girl, so she tells Blimpie she trusts her to fix the problem because she's the best. Blimpie then tells Holly Hunter that amongst the cadets, Hologram Girl is her favorite. Again. Even though she's just a piece of software. Again. And the ladies then do a toast and drink the night away because that's what Star Trek is these days. Just a bunch of middle-aged women having drinks and talking about their feelings. Again. Next, Caleb tries to talk with Betazoid Girl, but she pretends that he doesn't exist, which is exactly the type of maturity level we could expect from people attending a military-like academy. In theater class, Sensitive Klingon recites some kind of Klingon play that seemingly confirms that Klingons now have 4 balls rather than 2, although I strongly suspect that this specific Klingon probably has none. Maybe it's because of the skirt he's wearing. Again. But then it turns out that Sensitive Klingon has a cold, so Blimpie tells him that he should go quarantine in his quarters. I mean, mean, you'd think that 1,000 years in the future, they could probably quickly fix this problem over at sickbay, but this would require too much thought on the side of the writers here, who clearly have never watched an episode of real Star Trek, so let's move on. Hologram Girl then suggests that the cadets perform the play Our Town together, a play that is often taught to aspiring theater kids, which is basically what the writers of this show are. The play is a cliche at this point, and given how many shows have used it as a plot device over the years, it can even be seen as a type of lazy writing trope at this point. Anyhow, while Blimpie seems pleased with Hologram Girl's suggestion, Caleb doesn't see what Our Town has to do with him flying a starship, but his concerns are ignored. Then, just as they start discussing who will play what role in the Our Town play, Hologram Girl goes into full glitch mode, so she's immediately taken to sickbay. But why is a piece of software being taken to sickbay when an actual sick living being was sent to his room to quarantine 5 minutes ago? Yeah, don't think about it. The doctor is disappointed that Hologram Girl didn't tell him that she was glitching sooner, and she tells him that she feels like she's a machine with no control, but then Holly Hunter shows up and says, "You are not a machine," which is false, because technically she is a machine. But let's not focus on that now. It turns out that since that episode 6 confrontation on the Miyazaki ship where Hologram Girl was shot by a phaser, she keeps suffering from some type of processor overload, and the doctor simply doesn't know how to fix it. Hologram Girl suggests that they all go to her home planet of Kasq to see if they can fix her there, but then Holly Hunter and the doctor are concerned because Kasq is not a part of the Federation, and if they go there, the planet may not allow Hologram Girl to return to Starfleet Academy. But if her home planet is not part of the Federation, and they don't even want her here, how is she even here to begin with? Yeah, don't think about it. Holly Hunter tells the doctor that their only play is to personally escort Hologram Girl to Kasq because they won't dare disrespect Federation personnel. But if they're not part of the Federation, why wouldn't they disrespect Federation personnel? Yeah, don't think about that either. TikTok Girl and Betazoid Girl are both sad that Hologram Girl isn't there, which is odd to me. It's like being sad if you've lost an Amazon Alexa, but never mind that now. On her way out, Hologram Girl assigned the role of Emily in the Our Town play to Betazoid Girl and replaced TikTok Girl's toothbrush, which she dropped in the toilet even though she doesn't use a toilet. Betazoid Girl doesn't feel like being Emily, but TikTok Girl tells her not to be a Johnson, which I guess is better than her saying that she has a Johnson, although that could still happen here because, after all, this is Kurtzman Trek. Next, the gang is working on the Our Town play, but they just can't focus because Hologram Girl isn't there, so they're all sad and talking about their feelings. Again! Of course, the different characters in Our Town all somewhat mirror the characters on this stupid show, especially Betazoid Girl, who, much like Emily, feels like a ghost or something. The craziest thing about this whole plot device with this play is how clueless the writers are and how to even use it, because at no point do any of the characters feel any guilt for their actions in episode 6, which they claim is the source of their trauma. If you recall, Betazoid Girl initially stood around and did nothing, which is why Discount Spock lost his life. Caleb froze when he was under fire, and Discount Spock sacrificed himself to save him. Caleb was also the one that sent the transmission in episode 1 that led Paul Giamatti to Starfleet Academy, and that ultimately led to Giamatti's return in episode 6, which caused 2 casualties. TikTok Girl could have alerted her superiors that Caleb had secretly hijacked the ship's computer in episode 1, but she didn't do so, so she also contributed to those same 2 casualties. I guess what I'm saying is that even though there are people here that should be carrying serious guilt for contributing to the deaths of their peers, including Holly Hunter herself, nobody mentions any of this because on Kurtzman Trek, nobody is ever accountable for anything they do. Instead, the only trauma these cadets have is that they're super sad now, and people need to tell them how great they are. Again. Next, Holly Hunter, the Doctor, and Hologram Girl are on a shuttle to her home planet of Kasq, where we're told that time progresses much faster than anywhere else, that every 3 days on Kasq is like 5 years on Earth. This reminds the Doctor of an episode of Voyager with the planet Ghana. Remember Voyager?
Oh, I mean it.
Hologram Girl explains that her makers, which were AI, cut off communications with the entire universe. But if they cut off their communication with the entire universe, how did she end up at Starfleet Academy? Yeah, don't think about it. Then we're told that, like Cisco, she's their emissary. Again, but I still don't quite understand all of this. Why would Starfleet Academy allow some weird hologram, which is basically a piece of software, to attend their own academy, when the people who apparently sent her there have tasked her with secretly collecting data and transferring it to them. I mean, to me, this character sounds more like a spyware computer virus of sorts, more than anything else. And if you're expecting some great explanation here, you're pretty much wasting your time, because it seems like the lousy writers of this show have given this much less thought than we have. Again. Then, the episode shifts into agenda peddling mode when Hologram Girl heavily berates the Doctor for not being there for her when she needed him, and not agreeing to be her official mentor at the Academy when it wasn't actually a part of his job. And yes, I know that he's technically not a real person either, but I'm sure Kurtzman and his team had plenty of fun taking a legacy male Caucasian character and presenting him as a total bum that refused to help a more diverse female hologram, and they really go out of their way to make him look like a jerk here for some reason. Then Hologram Girl starts telling him her desires, that she wants to be a rebel, and that she wants to fall in love. Then she has another glitchy meltdown. Again. Meanwhile, back at the Starfleet Academy, Betazoid Girl calls Caleb for what seems to be a booty call, but it turns out that she hit the bottle, so Caleb doesn't want to take advantage of her. She then tells him that she can't read minds, which is super annoying because in episode 1, we were told that she's empathic. Then in another episode, she was telepathic. Then she was Dark Phoenix, and now she's none of those things. Like, seriously, the writers of this show have to have at least some consistency with this character, but they don't care enough to even bother, which really highlights the poor quality of this show. Again. After Caleb won't let Betazoid Girl play with his salami, she tells him that he's waited too long to leave her a voicemail in episode 7, and now he should hook up with TikTok Girl instead. But since Caleb only considers TikTok Girl a friend, he's like, "Hold up, girl, why you tripping, yo?" Oddly though, in the next scene, Betazoid Girl goes to her room where TikTok Girl is now her roommate. TikTok Girl helps her to bed as they talk about their feelings. Again. Betazoid Girl tells TikTok Girl that she now understands why Caleb likes her so much, but TikTok Girl assures her that they're just friends. Then they start caressing each other's hands, and since this is Kurtzman Trek, I was pretty sure this would turn into a love scene, but for the first time, he actually managed to subvert my expectations, and it wasn't. The scene even ends with Betazoid Girl telling TikTok Girl that she's like a port in the storm, a term that is sometimes used to describe intimacy, but things don't go any further, for now. As Hologram Girl is sleeping, the Doctor tells Holly Hunter how much he loves the play Our Town in a conversation that seems to go on forever and mean absolutely nothing. Finally, they arrive at the planet of Kasq, where the three talk to the AI that created Hologram Girl, known as the Makers. Now, this is where things get especially messy and convoluted, even for Kurtzman Trek. The Makers tell them that they usually would refuse to speak with them, but since this is a special circumstance, they'll allow it. Why is it a special circumstance? Yeah, don't think about it. It's also odd that the Makers seem to have a very proper English accent, which begs the question, why would they create a hologram that sounds like a 2026 American Gen Z weirdo? Yeah, don't think about that either. We then learned Hologram Girl is in hot water with these guys because she was supposed to report to them regularly like Mork on Mork and Mindy, but then she started ghosting them. So now they don't like her anymore, but they're willing to run a scan to see if they can diagnose her problem, which she allows them to do. Before they begin, they mention that there could be a problem with her emitter. Now this is weird because until now, nobody had even mentioned that she was supposed to have an emitter, and now suddenly it's here. As my friend Professor R2 pointed out, if the hijackers would have damaged her emitter with a phaser in episode 6, perhaps her glitching would have made sense, but otherwise, none of this really makes any sense. Again. Anyhow, Hologram Girl asks the Doctor if he can hold her hand while they scan her system, and the Doctor refuses, so she's like, "Don't leave me hanging, brah." But he's like, "Nah, girl, you and I ain't holding hands, yo." The AI Makers then scan Hologram Girl, and when they look into her memories, what do they see? That she wanted the Doctor to be her mentor, but he refused because he's a jerk. Again! Meanwhile, back at Starfleet Academy, the gang is talking about the Our Town play in Blimpie's stupid class. This scene has to be one of the worst of the series until now, because it's full-on soapy nonsense, but the main idea here is that Betazoid Girl wants to read Emily's part, but she feels like she's a freak. Again? So she has to cry, and then run away. Again! Meanwhile, the AI Makers tell the Doctor and Holly Hunter that they simply can't save Hologram Girl. They then reveal that it took them 2 centuries to create her, but Starfleet Academy managed to destroy her in 200 209 days, but this leaves me with one big question. They spent 2,000 years creating the perfect hologram, and this is what they came up with? I mean, give me 2,000 years to create my own AI, and I guarantee that she's going to look very differently. But fine, let's not dwell on that now. The makers then decide to terminate Hologram Girl's program. Why do they want to terminate her program? Yeah, don't think about it. Back at Starfleet Academy, Betazoid Girl's brother thinks she's going to leave the academy because she's sad, again, and then they all talk about how they miss Hologram Girl because she's the best, and then TikTok Girl shows them the toothbrush that Hologram Girl gave her after dropping her previous one in the toilet, so the gang becomes all misty-eyed for Hologram Girl, and they want to honor her by reading the Our Town play together. Back on Kasq, the Doctor feels sad that Hologram Girl seems to be gone, and her makers explain that it's not that they didn't want to save her, they just couldn't. Apparently, it wasn't the phaser that hit her in episode 6 that destroyed her, but rather that her processors overloaded because she couldn't handle the trauma. The Doctor tries to explain that in an episode of Voyager, he had a daughter for about 5 minutes that had passed away, so he promised to never love again. That's why he didn't want to be Hologram Girl's mentor. He then admits to Holly Hunter that he's both a loser and a coward, but then she comes up with a brilliant idea. Since every 3 days on the planet of Kasq is equivalent to 17 Earth years, the Doctor could spend 2 weeks raising Hologram Girl as his daughter and help her process trauma by giving her a nurturing upbringing. But if she's just a piece of software that you can upload stuff into, like the plays she read earlier in the episode, why does she need to be here for 17 years? Yeah, don't think about it. In any case, even though the Doctor is hesitant about this plan, he finally agrees, saying that Hologram Girl never gave up on him, so he won't give up on her. Now, just to create some order here, Kurtzman and his team have been desperate to make Hologram Girl a thing since the show's premiere, hoping she'll become an iconic character. But as always, they weren't skilled enough to write or cast her in a way that would achieve this goal, so they did the only thing that modern Hollywood writers know how to do. They had her character piggyback on iconic legacy characters of the past. In episode 5, we were told that she was a better emissary than Benjamin Sisko from Deep Space Nine. In this episode, she becomes the daughter of the Doctor from Voyager, but since the actor playing the Doctor is non-diverse, I strongly suspect that the woke writers of this show just couldn't let him be Hologram Girl's Caucasian patriarchal savior. So their solution was simple. They spent the entire episode establishing that he's an unlikable douche, and only once he fully acknowledged that, they allow him to save Hologram Girl on the condition that it's framed more as a redemption story for him, where she's actually saving him from being an asshole and not vice versa. I know how bizarre all of that sounds, but trust me when I tell you that this is very likely what they did here. And it's funny how these writers couldn't write a good story if their entire career relied on it, but when it comes to identity politics, that's the one and only thing that they truly know how to do. Anyhow, we then see a montage of the Doctor raising Hologram Girl as his daughter, and back on Starfleet Academy, Betazoid Girl decides to join the gang and read the Our Town play together with them. We then see Tig Notaro complimenting Blimpie on a job well done because she's the best. Then Holly Hunter and Tig Notaro see Blimpie off, but right before her departure, Betazoid Girl shows up to recite lines from Our Town. Again. And then in an effort to rip off Good Will Hunting, Blimpie tells Hologram Girl that it's not her fault what happened to her. The thing is, in Good Will Hunting, when Robin Williams delivers that line, it really does pack a strong emotional punch, whereas here, it's more of a pathetic fart. As Holly Hunter does her own captain's log summing up the events of the episode, we see Hologram Girl back at the Academy, where everybody is super excited to see her because she's the best! Again! And ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, the absolute worst episode of anything Star Trek related that ever aired to date. Now, I realize that once episode 9 airs, it may claim the throne as the worst episode ever, but for now, this is indeed the reigning champion, and if you appreciate how much I've suffered to bring you this review, please like and subscribe, as it would really mean a lot to me. Also, if you want to see my reviews for past episode, I'll put a link to them in the description below. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day.
I'm such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.